It seems to be becoming increasingly clear with each passing day that Joe Biden is little more than a capo in an intellectually challenged crime family. Larry, everybody was real worried when we didn't see you yesterday, so I'm glad to have you back today. Just want to let everyone know you had a little medical appointment, but everything is all right, isn't it? You feeling okay?
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm okay. A little beat down, but okay. Still here, buddy.
Got a lot of emails and people who value your input and enjoy watching our show, which normally is happening each week at 3 p.m. Eastern on Patreon, on YouTube. People missed you yesterday, Larry, and it's important that people who enjoy the show visit nicholslive.com, and you can provide Larry with some financial support by clicking on the donate button and using his PayPal address, nicholslive@aol.com, to send Larry some money. He does not get health insurance or a retirement plan from the type of work that he was doing for the Clintons, but it is very useful to us, people who want to know what's going on, people who have learned to not trust the fake news media. Larry, things have been going absolutely crazy with this Ukraine phone call. I think everyone wants to hear your insights.
Well, the Ukraine phone call, ordinarily we would be celebrating today, saying that once again, the Democrats have fallen flat on their face. But we're not. Right. The Democrats are saying that he they can't believe he released a transcript because it inasmuch convicts him. It's evidence against him. It's not exculpatory. Now, let me straighten that out for everybody. Number one, his bringing up Biden in any way, if he asked that president of Ukraine, would you please investigate and, do whatever you got to do to get to the bottom of the story. If he had hammered that guy, except for one thing, he could not offer anything quid pro quo. He couldn't say, if you'll do this, I'll give you these things. But if he pressured him to investigate Biden, it's perfectly legal. He is the chief law enforcement officer of the land. And he is highly suspect of Joe Biden and the deal with his son having to do with the prosecutor in the Ukraine.
Yeah.
Justifiably so, because Biden says it himself on tape.
Right.
Biden saying it, not somebody else. So you have no claim of wrongdoing. You don't. There's not one word in that entire transcript of any of the 4 transcripts that they paired and put together to come out with the final one. There's not one word in any of the transcripts, let me assure everyone, where he leverages anything, not tank busters, not money, not anything. He doesn't leverage anything with his request to ask the president, would you please check into something that he's heard about. Nothing wrong with it. But MSNBC, CNN, and the Democrats, they were suited up before this day ever got started. They had their pitch down before the day ever got started.
Yeah. No, it's clear, Larry. They're grasping for anything at all that they can. And, one of the reasons I'm so glad that you're out of the hospital and able to talk to us today is that I really wanted to ask you, I think this is unprecedented in terms of, at least in my life, I've never seen anything like this where no matter what a president does, they're attacking. As you've just pointed out, there is a lot of evidence of wrongdoing on the part of Joe and Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden has been ejected from the Navy for drug use. He had a rental car that they found a crack pipe in. He was paid something like $50,000 a month for his involvement in this deal in Ukraine. And as you pointed out, Joe Biden specifically said in his own words that he put pressure on them to get rid of this prosecutor who was looking into the wrongdoing. It's amazing that today, there's been a flurry of press conferences and news events and things going on where, dopes like Adam Schiff are acting like Donald Trump has done something illegal. Nobody is mentioning on the Democrat side Joe Biden and his son doing these, multiple millions of dollars worth of deals around the world. We've even heard about a $1.5 billion investment from China. How can they possibly do this, Larry?
Because who are you going to call to stop it? Who are you going to call? That's the beauty of the system we brought with Clinton. In Arkansas, we had perfected this system that if you block the prosecutors, the sheriffs, the judges, if you can block all of that stuff, you position people with who they're going to call. Who are you going to call to complain about the media not covering Biden? He's one of the leaders. He was the leader of the Democratic primary race. Have you ever seen a primary going on when you have a leader of the primary with such a scandalous looking deal that doesn't just get dragged through the mud?
Yeah.
Yet it's not touched.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And they want us to all swallow this nonsense that the President of the United States calling another foreign leader and asking him to investigate vast international corruption, graft, money laundering, theft, whatever these guys are doing. It's just immediately it starts this impeachment. I mean, what do they intend to impeach Trump for? Nancy Pelosi had that Skeletor press conference last night. What is it that she even thinks that Trump has done? They're saying he's violated his oath of office, etc.
First off, they are now praising. Oh, wait a minute. I just got a snippet. Okay. This is new. This is news.
What do we got?
Nobody knows it. I don't think anybody will. But it looks as though Chuck Schumer is advising Adam Schiff and the Democrats in the House to go after earlier calls with Trump and the president of the Ukraine. We want to look at every phone call he has had with the president of the Ukraine since taking office.
But Congress doesn't have the right to do that, do they? To examine all these classified communications?
How many times, Jason, have we said they can't do that and then they do it? How many times have we said, and they've never done before, but they're doing it now, can they do it? Well, this is going to be another one of those things. I have told you in this audience pretty much since day one, Jason, they're not going to impeach Trump. They don't want an actual impeachment. They don't. What they want is the impeachment inquiry.
Right.
To keep going on every day of this campaign.
Right.
Every day. Now, if people don't believe the impact of this constant slamming Trump with stuff that's obviously idiotic, well, let me show you what it does do. We had an election in Israel. If anybody knows Israel, you would know that Benjamin Netanyahu should have won the election hands down. They are constantly under threat. They have been safer under Netanyahu than any prime minister they've ever had. But he's barely scraping by if he does at all. Why? Because they use the same strategy on him, Jason, that they're using on Trump. Every day they hammered Netanyahu about this deal with his wife and, fraud and all of these false charges that they brought against him, none of which have stuck at all. But every day, over and over and over, every day, and you'll be amazed at the number of people in this country, Jason, that at a point, they take this attitude, well, if there's this much smoke, there must be some fire somewhere. And that will beat Trump. Because as I've told you also, this election boils down to Trump's soft base versus the Democrats' soft base. Whoever wins the primary for the Democrat, it doesn't matter if it's howdy doody, whoever comes out the winner, they have got the sweeteners to force different segments of this country to have to vote for that Democrat. Just to see that they may not even believe it'll really happen. But if you're black and somebody's telling me, if you let me, we're going to do reparation and you're going to get 5,000 or your family gets 25,000. I mean, they have no choice but to try it. That's the point of a sweetener. Same with paying off college, same thing with paying off college debt, same thing with total free, everybody gets it health care. These are things to force their soft base into turning out and voting. Trump doesn't have sweeteners.
I want to ask you something, because you've spoken to us a lot about sweeteners, you were talking about it before the Jussie Smollett thing happened, and that was sort of like a plan that got diffused before it could take off from the launch pad. I don't know if you've had a chance to see a film by Joel Gilbert called The Trayvon Hoax. This is an incredible documentary. Joel did some really astounding investigative reporting where he revealed stunning witness tampering in the case of Trayvon Martin that I'm sure you'll recall really set race relations in the United States back to like the 1970s, after we had achieved the milestone of electing a black president and all that. Interesting to note that the film has been removed from Amazon.com for unknown reasons. I've been in touch with Joel Gilbert, and Amazon gave him no reason. They just pulled the film. So this is what's happening to real news and real information. These powerful entities that control the flow of data and our access to it are able to just shut off facts that they don't like or they don't want people to see. And Larry, this is why it's so important that people support independent sources like yourself and crowdsource the truth by going to subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. And of course, to directly sponsor Larry, go to nicholslive.com and use his PayPal address, nicholslive@aol.com. So Larry, they're not going to let up on President Trump. And it's amazing to me that no one on the left, no one in the mainstream media is talking at all about the brazen criminality of the Biden family. In fact, Adam Schiff had a press conference just before we began, and he was using words like mafia tactics and shakedown, referring to President Trump, suggesting that a foreign government investigate what is an abuse of that government's economy by our former vice president. It's amazing that Adam Schiff doesn't talk about Ed Buck. Why is Adam Schiff not being investigated for his involvement with someone who was dealing in crystal meth, directly involved in the death of two guys? It's pretty bizarre, isn't it?
Well, it is, especially when there are 16 documented cases, get this, where Adam Schiff was at Ed Buck's apartment.
Wow.
On 16 different occasions that are documented, he was at his apartment. Now, what was he doing there?
That's a good question.
Doesn't matter. Nobody's going to investigate it. Nobody's going to investigate it. Nobody's going to investigate Biden. Look, you know, you were talking about them blocking that video. Jason, I have told you, just like I saw this memo or the snippet from this memo from Schumer, trust me, I have seen the memo. I've actually seen it. And they're talking about they are shutting down all conservative sites on the internet. They will shut it down, and all I know is it's mid-campaign. I don't know exactly what month they're going to do it, but it will be, I want to say it's going to be in the early half of the campaign season. But they've got to time it to where there can be no lawsuits that could materialize before the election. So that's the game they're playing there. Shut it down and fix it to where even if everybody complains and wants to go to court, it can't possibly get to court in time to save the election. But they're going to shut the voices down. And so, folks, in case you think I'm being patronizing, I'm not. Jason and I were talking before we even came on the air, were we not, Jason? And
Yeah.
I said, we're down to basically two sources, folks, two sources of getting the truth out. One, of course, is President Trump with his Twitter thing. I mean, it's so valuable, it's incredibly valuable. But the other source, and there are not many, and that is listener-sponsored programs like Crowdsource the Truth. I'm telling you, folks, Jason is allowed freedom that any other site that takes ad revenue does not have. They don't have that freedom. They may not know it yet, but they will soon find out.
Yeah.
Think about it, Jason, and the AOC and the squad, when they can pick any major corporation in the country and literally put it into submission by simply calling it racist or supporting racist causes, whatever. Mm-hmm. You don't think they don't have the power now to block any advertiser of any conservative program? You not think they do?
I think they do. And I think they're doing it all the time.
And they are, yes. So you see, this is the situation we're in, and as you and I talked before we came on the air, I have told you all, over and over and over again until you're sick of hearing it, that 2020 is it. The election, November of 2020, is it. I hope now y'all see it. I hope you see now that something has got to happen. Something. We can't go on like this, right, Jason? I mean, can we? Do you see any way?
No. And I want to ask you, Larry, because you in the past have been involved in opposition research and various dirty tricks in political campaigns, and I think that the time we've had in a short period of time, we've had the arrest of Jeffrey Epstein, we've got the arrest of Ed Buck, and we always talk in a general sense about these compromise operations, but I want people to kind of picture this in their head. So if you determine that a target likes, let's say, homosexual prostitutes and crystal meth, and I'm not saying that target is Adam Schiff, but if he's associated with Ed Buck, who, according to allegations he's currently facing, does seem to like crystal meth and male prostitutes, and a few of them are dead, if Adam Schiff knows anything about that, or was present for any of that, or even just the fact that he's accepted money from the guy, he's now in a position where he doesn't really want a commander-in-chief who's going to dig into this type of large-scale political corruption, campaign finance corruption, straight up criminality. So we can see how someone like Adam Schiff would be really dramatically motivated to put forth any kind of nonsense story to stop a president that might be doing these types of things. It's important to remember that Hunter Biden has also been accused of drug use and, as we said, ejected from the Navy. He had a rental car that had a crack pipe in it. I mean, Larry, this behavior is so beyond the pale. It's at the height of whatever Clinton was doing in the 80s, isn't it?
Yeah, but here again, when you're talking about this hypothetical, what do you think? Let me ask you this, Jason. Why? Now, I'm the only person I know of that has done acclimation orientation for both parties in Washington in the same year, so I think I've set a record. Why do you think these lobby firms throw all these lavish parties when freshmen, congressmen, and senators just get to town? What do you think that's about? What do you think they're doing?
Picture of them doing some illegal drug, or having something with someone who's not their wife, and suddenly you got a lot of leverage.
That's exactly it. Most people think it's a meet and greet, just to meet and get to know and get on the good side. That's not it at all. They're hunting. And they take a freshman and they run through the gambit. They'll throw drugs in front of his nose, women in front of his nose, kids in front of his nose. But in a series of 2 or 3 of these lavish parties, they pretty well know what every freshman congressman or senator, they know what their fetish is. And they use it for leverage, or leverage from the get-go. And that's why I've always told you, anybody that's been there beyond 1 term, or maybe 2, but generally it's just 1 term, anybody that's there over 1 term, you can't trust them. Because they've been caught, whatever it is.
Right.
And it may not be a fetish like, pedophilia. It may not be that. It may just be money, but it doesn't matter. They will get them.
Well, I mean,
And you
certainly
can't trust
crystal meth and 2 dead prostitutes in your house might not be a fetish, but it's certainly enough to hang somebody out to dry. So we've got this picture that I'm showing everybody right now of Hillary Clinton standing there with Ed Buck. It was really quite crazy that the New York Times described him as a small-time donor, and I was speaking to a friend of mine in Los Angeles who was upset that they were focusing on the fact that the guy was a Democratic donor rather than, the drug use, the deaths associated with him. But this is actually very important because it's not just that they've changed it now to say a Democratic donor and activist, whereas before it said a small-time Democratic donor. It's very odd, Larry. We're living in an age where the New York Times no longer needs to issue a retraction. They can just update their website quietly, and nobody necessarily needs to know about that. But it is very significant that Ed Buck is what's known as a mega donor.
Well, he's not only a mega donor, but where he gets by with it is he is a batcher. He batches people together.
Is that like a bundler?
And that's the way he's bundler. Yeah, same difference.
Got it.
It is the same thing. And it's just a way that they can get a group of people together, and he can funnel more money than what he's legally allowed to do by going through the batch or the bundle.
Yeah. I don't know if you've seen any recent photos of him, Larry, but he looks like a definite meth head to me. He's super skinny and his eyes are wide open. I mean, he looks like a drug addict. This is a guy who's probably not going to make it out of jail at all.
Yeah, this is another Epstein if he's not careful.
Right.
Once again, Ed Buck is bound to have, I do not know it, I have not been involved with that investigation at all, but I can only assume that he's bound to have a black book as well that, quite honestly, could put some very powerful people behind the 8 ball, and they don't like that.
See, and that's what I'm seeing. That's what I'm seeing when Donald Trump has a conversation where he says nothing inappropriate to a foreign leader who, in fact, should be investigating this issue with Hunter Biden. And then immediately they jump on him. It's interesting, Larry. I don't want to make this about me, but I see parallels between the social engineering campaigns that are run against the president and the social engineering campaigns that have been run against Crowdsource, The Truth, and myself from the very beginning since I started this. They just make up a fake story and they keep saying it. I wanted to ask you this about your Clinton years. There's this saying that's been attributed, I think, to the Clintons that when the signal is weak, you add noise. When the signal is strong, you attenuate it, you weaken it. So it seems like all the Democrats are just adding noise to the news cycle. They tell everybody Trump violated his constitutional right. There should be the death penalty for Trump, somebody said yesterday. And people who don't look into this stuff and just turn on the news or walk by a television at the airport and listen to CNN for 5 minutes, they hear that message and it keeps getting hammered into their head. And the signal is overwhelmed by that noise.
Well, another thing interesting is you're talking about Schiff's press conference before we went on the air, using the words he did.
Yes.
Remember, one of the signature things that we did with Clinton was called transference. We call it transference. That was where, when we wanted to roast somebody, and they were clean as a whistle, nothing you could pin on them. We'd make stuff up, but what we did is we made stuff up that we were doing so that we had good, good information to tell how it was being done, that he must have been doing something, because nobody could have figured out you had to do this, this, and this to make that kind of stuff work, right? So we always accused people of what we were doing. Right. Now, isn't it funny if you apply transference to what you heard Chet say? Yeah. Mafiosa, mafia stuff. To me, what he's saying is, look, this is what we do, this is what we've got. And that's what we're accusing him of.
Absolutely. I mean, it seems totally clear, because that is what they're doing. And Joe Biden is so damn stupid, he has to boast about it to tell people that he put pressure on Ukraine and made them fire this prosecutor who was going to look into it. It's interesting because, Larry, even in the time that I've grown up, the whole concept of the world shrinking, I don't know if people who are younger than I am necessarily appreciate this, but I remember being a kid and even calling California was like a big deal. It was a long distance phone call. Calling Europe or whatever was like, once a year at the holidays you would do that. And traveling all around, I mean, everything is just so much more interconnected and international. So when these globalist criminals, they prey on these smaller economies, these weaker countries. Ukraine is nothing compared to the United States in terms of technological, economic, military, and political sophistication. So it's really bad that somebody like Joe Biden is sending his son over there to put pressure on these various entities to earn money.
Well, you've got to remember also, when Biden made that video where he just comes out and says it, go back to that moment in time. Obama is in power. The media is totally in their control. They had Loretta Lynch. I mean, they had everybody in every key position. He had no reason to not boast about it. No reason. Plus, it was a dead certain that when Obama left office, Hillary would take it.
Right.
So they have no reason to hide anything. They have no reason to be afraid of getting caught. And as you see, even with President Trump in power, there's still a 90% chance that nothing's going to happen with him.
Right.
Hold on one second. Keep talking. I've got to take this call for just a second.
No problem. But I mean, it certainly does seem to be the case that this is super likely to explode in Joe Biden's face, because, I mean, this was something pretty much a lot of people had forgotten about, and now there's all this attention on it, and they seem to be locked in a death match, like a game of chicken, political chicken here, where somebody's going to have to answer to this. Either they're going to impeach Trump or they're going to investigate Biden. But it seems, Larry, that this investigation, The Hill is reporting that this is a nightmare for Joe Biden, because it was previously a closed probe, and now there's all this attention on it. What do you think about that? Is there any chance that this is going to result in Joe Biden getting investigated?
No. No. Not at all.
Really?
Well, let me take that back. I believe what I can say is, how do I say this and not violate a trust? Biden is being investigated.
Right.
He is being investigated.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess when I said no, as I did, I'm speaking in terms of the public being informed. They're not going to be informed. Barr is trying to run the Department of Justice the way it's supposed to be run. And when you're doing an investigation, it's not supposed to be made public.
Right.
For the sole purpose that if the person you're investigating turns out to be innocent, well, if you spent months or years roasting him in the paper and then you finally say he's innocent, well, nobody will believe it, or half the people in the country still believe you're guilty.
Right.
So,
well, and we've seen that. We've
So
seen
it
that
should be.
happen to a lot of people in recent memory, Larry, right? Of course, Dr.
Yeah,
Corsi has been dragged through the mud, and the president himself. Just the fact that they're investigating him and throwing all these accusations at him, as you said, it just causes everybody to be thinking about that.
And where we are today, my opinion, is President Trump needs to use, while he still has his Twitter, while he still has you and a few other programs that are truly independent, he needs to go after what I call the root cause of the Democrats. What is behind all of this, Jason? You've been around long enough. In my lifetime, I've seen it over and over and over again. When a president of the opposition party is elected, it is not uncommon. It's not uncommon to go after his agenda and try to stall his agenda, shut his agenda down, whatever you can do in that regard. But I have never seen.
But through voting, right, Larry? Obstructing the president with the Congress.
Right, with your votes in Congress and playing the congressional game that you're all familiar with.
Right.
Lest it be Bill Clinton. We've never seen what they're doing to President Trump, and it's different even than Bill Clinton. Y'all don't realize how many years I spent working with media to get the truth out about Bill Clinton, and they wouldn't put it out. Had it not been for Ambrose Evans Pritchard and the Sunday Telegraph, or Sunday Daily Telegraph, whatever they call it, when he started breaking the stories that put so much reverse English on the mainstream media back here, they had to cover it. And then, of course, when they covered any of it, it blew wide open. But we had talk radio, which we don't have today. So I'm telling you, he's getting a treatment so different than any other president in his, certainly modern history.
Right.
And so President Trump needs to be on his Twitter asking people, force the Democrats out. What is the root cause of this? What are they really, really up to? What is this all about, Jason? And it's not just about neutralizing Trump so he can't get his projects and agendas completed. It's not about that. That could be handled through legislative trickery and voting. You don't do this.
Right. Well, I tell you, Larry, in my view, all this activity with the whole Ukraine deal is, I've been very quick to become frustrated that we haven't seen these indictments, and I was really skeptical of William Barr when he was first appointed, given his own statements during his confirmation hearing that he was outside counsel at the CIA. Before I had spoken to you about William Barr, I was just watching that, and when he said he was outside counsel for the CIA, I knew right away that meant he was a CIA lawyer. So I started talking to you about it. I started talking to Kevin Shipp about it. I'm looking at a picture right here back in the day when William Barr was the Attorney General, and he's hanging out, smiling with a much younger Joe Biden. So I'm still very concerned that we might have a very swamp-infested Department of Justice. People may have seen the episode of More Pain last night, where Mike Moore of True Pundit and myself went to Lancaster, Pennsylvania to try to attend a fundraising event for Andrew McCabe. Larry, there was an amazing surveillance and intelligence apparatus surrounding Andrew McCabe, preventing us from even seeing the guy, much less asking him any questions that he might not have wanted to answer. So I think that this is an indication that Trump is trying to drain the swamp, but we see the powerful assets that get activated when he really gets to something very effective. If Trump were allowed to proceed along the lines of justice and the law, I think we would very quickly see criminal action brought against Hunter Biden, probably Joe Biden. I mean, it seems quite clear that there was corruption going on in these deals.
No, absolutely. But hence, you've got the problem. let's give Barr the benefit of the doubt and let's say he is playing this one straight. But you got to remember, this deep state is so deep that, you know, you can't trust people under Barr. You can't. He can't. He shouldn't.
Right.
Because we don't know how deep it is. For example, on this thing with this phone call, you know, what I don't hear anybody talking about is who is the guy that, that listened to the call and then told the guy that we call the whistleblower. The whistleblower didn't hear the call.
Oh, right.
He was told about it, and he went public with it. So it seems to me somebody ought to be saying, well, since that's top secret and above top secret, presidential phone calls to dignitaries, and somebody listened to it and then passed it on to somebody else, you know, there's your crime.
Right.
There's the person that ought to be. And do you hear anybody talking about it at all? Has anybody mentioned that?
No, because what they love to do, Larry, is they gerrymander the facts, they gerrymander their outrage to suit whatever their purpose might be. Since when does Adam Schiff and anybody in the House of Representatives want to do anything with whistleblowers other than throw them in jail? I mean, look at what happened to Bradley Manning, Chelsea Manning. Look at what happened to Julian Assange. Even whistleblowers who have come on to this show, Larry. Look at what happened to Robin Gritz. Robin Gritz was blowing the whistle on corruption within the FBI before anybody ever heard the name Andrew McCabe. And she was run out of the FBI. She's had her health deteriorated by all of the financial and psychological pressure that's been put on her. They're acting like this unknown whistleblower is a saint and a savior to the country. But when actual whistleblowers actually blow the whistle on corruption, they lose their jobs, they lose their ability to find new jobs, they lose their health, they lose everything.
Now tell me about it.
Right.
I can tell you about that one,
right.
Real easily. But you know, this is the system that we have now that Trump's trying to bust up, and it's hard to bust up. Now, as far as we still have one thing left with Barr, whatever he does with Andy McCabe will tell us whether he's straight or he's just another deep stater. He doesn't necessarily have to indict McCabe, but he certainly needs to impanel a grand jury. If he does neither one of those, then I like you, are going to be bad concerned about him.
Well, I don't know
but
if
now,
you've had
remember also, Jason, remember this, all of you, above all else. Comey, McCabe, Clapper, Brennan, Biden, Obama, Yates, these are the worst kind of criminals.
Absolutely.
They're smart criminals. And so it's not unreasonable to think that Comey would be smart enough to go all the way, break all moral standards and moral laws, but go all the way straight to the line of breaking the actual statutory law and not do that. And you know, you can accomplish a lot by getting that close to breaking the law, but just not actually breaking it.
Right.
So one of the problems Barr or anybody is going to have going after Comey, McCabe, and the crew, they have to have violated a statute. They literally had to break a law that they can be prosecuted with. And I'm not talking about moral laws. I'm talking about the actual written law. They've got to violate it.
Right.
And it may be, unless we're lucky, it may be that they're just smart enough to have planned all of this, and certainly Comey and some of the higher level people literally walk up to the line but didn't cross it, knowing that if they ever got caught, that would be their salary.
Larry, isn't it also true that they can break the law, but they can then take elements of evidence and do things with it to make it impossible or virtually impossible for that evidence to ever make its way into court. These guys, I mean, these are the highest level lawyers, law enforcement, lawmakers, people that know this stuff inside and out and can play it any way they want.
And you bring up a very important point, the chain of custody, evidentiary chain of custody.
Right.
They're over the chain of custody. So we have no idea how much evidence has been destroyed
Right.
that we didn't even know about. Now, if you don't believe that, folks, if you don't believe that, then look at Hillary. What did she do with her emails? What did she do with her server? You know, she knew it was coming. She knew it was coming. So what did she do? She destroyed it all. Well, you can be mad at her for destroying it all, and you can make every kind of allegation you want to make under the sun, but we had two rules, Jason. Rule one, well, there's actually one rule, but it was, if you got evidence, does it do more damage if the evidence gets out, or is the damage more if you destroy the evidence?
Right.
And that's the way they look at it. That's all evidence is. Is it more valuable to destroy it, or is it more valuable to hurt you?
Well,
if you let it
weigh
out?
the risk. They weigh the risk with everything that they're doing, and if they feel like they can destroy it and spin it by saying that it was more convenient to crush servers and BlackBerries than to turn over evidence after it was subpoenaed, then she'll go ahead and do it. You know, Larry, back to the whistleblower thing.
Well, if you know what I know, and knowing that now, Jason, think about this. Knowing what the penalty would be for destroying evidence that you had been subpoenaed to turn over, knowing what the penalty would be if you literally got prosecuted for doing that, versus the penalty you'd pay for whatever it is destroying it covered up, that should tell you the severity of what she was covering up.
Right. So in other words, you're saying if it's a felony to spoliate evidence, that might carry a 5-year sentence. But if the evidence that you're spoliating is evidence of treason, you've just traded a life sentence or a death sentence for a 5-year sentence, and that's a pretty good deal if you're a lawyer.
You got it right there. That's exactly the way they weigh evidence. That's it.
Well, that's the way they weigh everything. I mean, they can go on the news and lie all day and night because they're not under oath. They can say one thing one day, another thing another day. If anybody asks them, they say Trump is lying about this, so they lied about that. But it's all a big game. I want to go back to the whistleblower stuff because you've experienced it firsthand. Sibel Edmonds, I'm sure you know that name, the former FBI agent. She does a lot of really important reporting on Turkey. She's got News Buds. She just put out a YouTube video today where she was analyzing Edward Snowden's recent media push. I've always had a very positive image of Edward Snowden. I thought he did some important work revealing this mass surveillance. He's come out with a book, and Sibel Edmonds says it's a PR stunt, that no book publisher would ever have published an Edward Snowden book without having a letter from the NSA, from the CIA, saying that they've looked at the manuscript and approved everything. Despite my overall positive view of Edward Snowden, this was a very compelling report by Sibel Edmonds. What do you think about that, Larry?
Well, I like you. When I think of Snowden, I understand that he violated very serious laws. But I also understand that thanks to what he did, he opened up a new dimension of going after the secrecy of the government. I mean, he really did open the floodgates.
Right.
So you can't help but admire that. And its importance to maybe saving our country in the end. Mm-hmm. But, beyond that, Jason, but I just don't know. I don't know. I don't know where that falls. I truly don't.
It's always confusing when there's two people who you think are doing good stuff and they go against each other. I guess audience members have experienced that at various times when Crowdsource the Truth has been at odds with people who we thought were honest and were allies. But this is happening all the time in the world of politics, the world of intelligence and military stuff. It's always, deceptions sometimes that are festering for years, and it's difficult. This is one of the main reasons why I created Crowdsource the Truth, because sometimes people have a very difficult time, coming to a conclusion about what is the truth. We need to scrutinize all these things very carefully.
And that's why, Jason, I tell everybody, if you want to know the truth coming out of Washington, D.C., whatever you see in the media or you hear the congressmen or senators saying, figure out what is exactly the opposite.
Right.
And 98% of the time, you will know the truth. Now, what makes that little game complicated, and you would think it wouldn't be, because up, the opposite of up's down, opposite of left's right. But in so many issues, the opposite's not that obvious. You can't just say the opposite of what Schiff did today. He was lying, but what is the opposite of what he said? I mean, I'm just saying that in some cases we can't tell what the opposite is. But you can fairly well bet 98% of the time what you hear coming out of Washington's a lie.
I think that's a little bit low, perhaps, the estimate.
Probably is. Now, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Knowing that now, how can we exist with a government that we 100% can't trust? How can we continue on?
Well, and the other thing...
That's what I mean. It's coming to the head.
Yeah. The other thing, Larry, that I'm constantly kind of struggling with is that, when Adam Schiff or Robert Mueller or any of these guys, they come on the news and they tell people blatant falsehoods. There's a lot of people out there who have been, psychologically conditioned by months, years of this now. And so there are people who are predisposed to dislike the president. When something happens, they jump on it right away. So they want to believe whatever Adam Schiff is saying, and he's, just throwing fuel on that fire. And I think that's what they're relying on. It's no longer got to do with the law. It's no longer got to do with the Constitution. It's just whatever kind of, fervor they can whip up by broadcasting crap on television.
Well, what the Democrats are doing is actually very damn smart. I hate to say it, but it is. They know in Trump's soft base that there is a percentage of it. I don't know the percentage. They've never told me, or anybody's ever guessed it, actually. There's some percentage of the people that voted for Trump in 2016 that voted simply for him because there was no way they were going to vote for Hillary.
Right.
No way. Now, those people are not attached to Trump. They're not. So the Democrats are doing everything they can to show the parallel between Trump and Hillary. She was crooked, so you couldn't vote for her. So they're making Trump out to be crooked so that same group of people may not know who the Democrat is they're voting for, but they're sure not going to vote for Trump.
Right.
And I believe that's a big part of what they're doing towards the campaign with all of this. They're setting Trump up to lose those straggler voters that he got that just didn't want to vote for Hillary or would not vote for Hillary.
Larry, what do you think about the speculation some people are engaging in that perhaps Hillary will jump into the race? Maybe now we're seeing the precursor to a Biden exit and Hillary taking over?
No way. I don't see it. I could be wrong. This is my opinion, but I assure you, Hillary's not getting in. Not because she wouldn't do it in a heartbeat, but the Democratic Party blame Hillary. They should be in power now. We should already be a socialist company. We should already be under the oppressiveness of a socialist, communist government. Right now, we're supposed to be there. This is all a mistake. We're supposed to be there. and they blame it on Hillary. And so she couldn't get through the power group in the DNC, the Progressive Council. She couldn't ask to be dog catcher, and they'd let her do it. I just don't think they would. I don't think they want any part of her. Certainly, in this race, they don't want her in, Jason. Think about it. Because here they go again. They've got to out-dirt Dirty, and she's dirty. And right now, all they got to do is just run a candidate that seems somewhat clean.
Yeah, but they don't have any. I mean, Joe Biden is bleeding out the eyes. His teeth are flying out. His son is doing crack and extorting money. They during the press conference
Look, Joe Biden's not going to be the Democratic nominee. The Progressive Council, I found out 3 or 4 weeks ago, they are off of him. They have not chosen who's going to be their person, but he's done.
Right.
Biden's done. He'll not be the nominee.
Clearly, he's done. I mean, this is. I think that we're going to see this scandal. Today is Wednesday. I predict by Friday this scandal is going to be all over Biden, and Trump is going to be exonerated, because anybody who looks at the facts, even in a cursory manner, I mean, this is one of the most bizarre things to be in the news ever. We've finally got a president who is actually holding other politicians accountable for vast international corruption, and we see how quickly this machine mobilizes against him. It's kind of frightening.
Yeah, well, I never want to be guilty of going against you, the host, but you're wrong.
Oh.
This Friday, this whole ordeal over the whistleblower is going to escalate. Remember, we just saw a memo, or a piece of a memo, where they intend to proceed now to drag this out even further, to go after all conversations he's had with this president. So, this is going to drag on and on and on. And I'm sorry, it just is. I don't want it to.
Right.
But Trump's going to have to develop an offensive strategy and stop. Trump is he's the best counterpuncher I've ever seen in politics. He truly is. But he's got to go totally offensive now, I believe. He's got to go after Pelosi and Schumer in the Democratic Party, and he's just got to say the magic words. What's behind all of this? What are y'all really up to? What's your root cause for all of this?
Yeah.
And if he can keep pushing that and get people to think about it, he stands a chance of getting on top of this game before it gets out of control.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you got a chance to see that Nancy Pelosi press conference last night. I'm having a little difficulty bringing it up right now, but Nancy Pelosi, to me, looks so unsteady in every aspect.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, she literally looks like an aging alcoholic who just can barely speak. And she was stumbling over her words. I don't understand why anybody has any confidence in her. I don't understand how she became the Speaker of the House. I don't understand why she's not being investigated. All of these multimillionaires in Congress who have been there forever, it's an open question as to how they all became so rich. Their husbands are doing deals in countries that they're presiding over, lawmaking and policy making for. So it's this Biden investigation is actually really important from a symbolic standpoint, because I do believe it represents Donald Trump making an effective effort to drain the swamp, and I think the reaction underscores how effective it would be if it's allowed to go forward.
Right. But think about this, Jason. We would never, as the public, we would never know about Biden and his son and that whole deal. We wouldn't know about it.
If not for
Trump.
Trump.
It wasn't for Trump. And,
right.
So how many of these kind of sweet deals have gone on year after year after year with family member?
A lot.
Over and over and over it happens. Yes. And nobody hears about it. This is a case that, like you're saying, this case is important because it brings it out. what do you call it, nepotism maybe?
Yeah.
You know, it brings out this way that our government has been functioning for years, and the inside people are getting all the inside deals. And, you know, in a way, when you hear Bernie Sanders and Warren talking about the rich just keep getting richer, well, you know, in a way, they're kind of right. The people on the inside, especially at the government level, that are friendly with the high-ups in the government, guess what? They do keep getting richer. And they keep getting richer by doing the kind of deals that Biden's son did. He didn't deserve that. He didn't deserve $50,000 a month from China. He didn't deserve all that being on chairman of the board of that company, of a company he knew nothing about the industry at all.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty blatant. That's pretty blatant just payoff there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the worst kind of corruption imaginable. I mean, this is basically exactly what we don't want our government to be doing. I mean, everybody's talking about how, you know, raising taxes and, you know, all these different things. I think if we could just eliminate the corruption, there would be billions of dollars available to do the right thing.
And then we finally get a family that the president's family, they're wealthy enough, they don't have to steal and they don't have to pull these shady deals. But they're being accused of it, or will be. I promise you, they'll be accused of, I've heard it done already, you know, claiming that Indian president has helped his company, and
right.
Good heavens. You know, he's guilty no matter what he does. Even doing nothing, he's guilty.
Yeah. Well, this same friend of mine from California, when we were talking about, you know, Joe Biden's son, the crackhead, you know, stealing all this money, was talking about some incident where Mike Pence stayed at a Trump hotel in Scotland. And I suggested, well, perhaps there's some security measures at that. The point was that somehow Pence had gone 180 miles out of his way to stay at this Trump hotel, and this person was arguing that it was unjust enrichment of the Trump organization. But what I offered as a counterpoint was, how do we know that that Trump hotel hasn't been somehow fortified in some sort of security procedure so that it's less expensive to have the vice president stay there, even if it means traveling further than you might if it was you or I staying at a hotel? There's all kinds of considerations with being the president or the vice president and traveling around that maybe isn't obvious. And these type of social engineers who are within Congress and within the government know that people don't know about that, and they can say whatever they want on news to convince people of stuff, get us all fighting with each other, get us confused about what's right, what's wrong, what should or shouldn't be. But Larry, we're unfortunately out of time right now, so I just want to one more time remind people to help Larry out. He's just recovering from another medical visit, and he really needs our financial support. If you could go over to nicholslive.com, click on the donate tab, and navigate yourself over there to Larry's PayPal address. You can go on to paypal.com, and using his address nicholslive@aol.com, you can send Larry a payment via PayPal. You could also put some cash in an envelope and mail it to him in Conway, Arkansas. Larry, thanks for contacting me today. I'm glad we were able to get a show in this week. It's such an important news week. Anything you want to say before we end?
Well, I just, once again, and I hate to do this because it sounds like I'm being patronizing and we're stroking each other, and that's not the case, folks. I really need help. But I also want to say, I'm not kidding about Crowdsource the Truth. We must support it. We have to support it. There's going to be a day coming very, very soon when his format, his listener-sponsored, is going to be about the only thing we can have, the only thing we'll be able to get. So I suggest everybody, please, if you just, and I've said it before, I'll say it again, if you need to invest in this country now. You need to get in the game. And if you want to help and you've only got one amount of money you can give, you give it to Crowdsource. Please give it to Crowdsource. We've got to have this program or I don't get to come home. And I assure you, the things I'm telling you right here on this program, check it out. They will come true. You'll see what I say is going to happen. You'll see it happen.
Appreciate that,
Promise
Larry.
you that.
Really nice of you to say,
You bet.
and really nice of you to take the time out to come on the show. I know everybody appreciates it. You know, Larry, in just about 1 hour, I'm going to be premiering an all-new show with Tiffany Fitzhenry. We're going to be doing another deep dive into the corrupt dealings of Hollywood darling George Clooney. So people are going to want to tune in an hour from now to catch that. Thank you so much, Larry, for joining us today, and thanks everybody for watching. I'll see you later.